guys, welcome to another episode of So Here's What Happened. I'm Nisha, joined by my lovely co-host,
Carolyn, who apparently can't talk.
It's cool. It's been a minute. We took a little 1 month break. But yeah, thanks y'all for tuning in for another episode where me and Carolyn talk about all the things we watch. Well, not all the things, because we'd be here for too long and y'all would not listen to it. Or maybe y'all would. But we talk about some of the top things that we watched and read. So to kick things off, let's dive into the book corner.
Yes, and my book for the months of April/May going into June this is kind of had it on official hiatus, due to health issues, which I'll get into a little bit later. But my book recommendation is The Evening Hero by Marie Myung-Ok, or Lee, if you're going to pronounce it the Americanized way. It's a family drama with a bit of sci-fi, which I wasn't expecting, because it's not the timeline that the book is set isn't clearly defined, which is interesting. So the book was published in May, but if you read the book, like, you're not sure exactly what year the present is set in, because the book takes place in the past, in late 1940s, early 1950s South Korea, and present day, quote unquote, North America, more to be more exact, Pennsylvania, because this book, I think, is to me, this is one of the most fascinating reads that I've read in a while, and for being that I could read. But this book, I think it's not an educational tool, but I think it's a good introduction for a lot of people who are not familiar with South Korean history, especially the history of South Korea just before World War and the beginning of what is now known as the Korean War. And that took place legit right after the Second World War, and it's still not officially over because they never had an official resolution to the war. It is actually till now in 2022 an armistice, which means is that the governments of South Korea and other governments signed an armistice where they just said, we're going to end war. It's a ceasefire. It's not that the war has been declared over. There is no winner or no loser. It's just a ceasefire. And that is, as you know, South Korea, as it is known now, is actually part of a larger peninsula known as Korea. And it became known as South Korea because of the American involvement in the Second World War. Because after the Second World War, I'm not going to a whole thing, but like the book kind of like gives an insight into the Korean perspective of what it was like to be in a country where you are just known as Korea. Your country is just your country. And then one day, because two American men decided they're going to stand on a piece of a rock and say, where are we going to split this country in half? Randomly, along the 30th parallel, became known as North and South. And but I think a lot of people who are not familiar with Korean history don't understand is literally that all happened in one day. So people were literally separated from their families in the space of minutes, forever. So if for instance, if your dad was going, if I live in Scarborough, and if my dad or my sister was going to work in downtown Toronto, at the moment they drew the line that separates the greater GTA and Toronto, a subway line, and they say, well, you can't pass this boundary. I can't go to my family in downtown Toronto. I can't hop on the bus. I can't go get the train. I can't walk across to go to my family. They were forever separated, and that's what this book really goes into. And then it talks a lot about generational trauma and how, but in a very smart way, because it talks about a lot about how people, when you immigrate to different countries, especially during war and because of war, how you lose so much of yourself and your culture and your identity when you move to a country like North America. Especially when you move to a country like America, where you have to decide between assimilation and integration, and how sometimes assimilation it just happens that you don't make the choice to assimilate. You just do it because it's a matter of survival. And then it talks about how that especially for a lot of first gen children, because anyone who would have moved then and moved now, like their children are first gen, right. And it talks about how there's a cultural disconnect between parents and their first generation born North American children. And it gives a perspective of the children and the adults, which I think is so interesting and it's so well done. And it's about this doctor, Dr. Youngman Kwok, and who is a gynecologist. So that's also interesting to have a male protagonist who's a doctor, but he's also a gynecologist, and he is a OBGYN to be more precise. And I just think it's really good. This is the first book I read by Marie. I have another book called Finding Yourself that I'm going to read because I'm going to be interviewing her. But this book is so fascinating, and it's like the way she writes it just feels like a really good conversation with someone. And I just really love that. And the front of the book, the design is a ginseng root. And there's a story involving a ginseng root in this book that literally made me bust out laughing. I was like, just thinking about this story now, makes me laugh. And if you don't know what ginseng in the Caribbean and in Asia in particular, ginseng is known as not an aphrodisiac, but it is known as a hormonal stimulant where people take it if you want to increase your hormone levels and you want to be, it kind of helps with your libido and that kind of stuff. So there's a story about that in this book that actually made me laugh. And I just think that now that I know what the ginseng root means in the book, also ginseng in South Korean history, because ginseng is actually very super expensive in South Korea now. Before it was ginseng for anywhere, but now you can. I love that has to do with American imperialism and then also with the war affecting South Korea. So just that story alone, I gotta laugh. That ginseng story was freaking hilarious. But it's a really interesting book, and I can't wait. I just realized I had a whole bunch of tags in this book. I know they're gone. No. See, I have a whole bunch of tags. But it's just really good, and I would recommend it for anyone to read. It's also a pretty big read too. It has how many pages? The total amount of pages is 427.
Jesus. So, yeah, that's a big read.
It's a big read.
Yeah.
I started reading this on my vacation in Barbados in April, and I would have been able to finish this book in less than a week, no joke. But I've been having problems with my cognition, and reading has been very difficult for me. So it's been kind of slowing. So I read it when I'm on my good days. On the days when my cognition is good and I'm able to actually physically read and understand stuff, that's what I read. So it's been a bit slow going for me, but I would recommend it to anyone. So that is The Evening Hero by Marie Myung-Ok.
Nice.
And what are you reading, Nisha? Do you have anything to recommend? Manga?
Manga wise, nothing new because I'm just taking a break and just reading leisurely. I've been catching up on a lot of manga that I had to put on hold because of school. But I will have some new stuff next month, but I have been reading a lot of webtoons. One that I've been consistently reading that I'm really excited to tell you all about is Morgana and Oz. So what happens when a struggling witch meets an angsty vampire? Either love or war, Morgana belongs to a long line of witches and Oz to a rival vampire clan. After a chance encounter and maybe a few stray spells, these two need to find a way to work together or risk all-out war between coven and clan. So it's on Webtoon. Highly recommend it. I think the art is very cute. If someone has seen Kiki's Delivery Service, I think you will immediately be drawn to the art and the aesthetic because the witches aren't all black, but Morgana's dress is kind of frilly. You can tell that while the witches, the coven's uniform, and when they say coven, it's not just a random gathering of witches. It's no, it's a big extended family of the witches. So people marry in, people are adopted into the family. So that's the coven. Whereas the vampire clan, that's more of a found family structure where it's that is a clan of people coming together who have either, and the mystery is right now, and this isn't a spoiler or anything, vampires can either be turned, and in the rare occasion they can be born a vampire. That is one of the characters' mysteries. There's between them, there's as I mentioned, there's a rivalry going on. All of this comes to a head pretty quickly in the first 10 chapters because what happens is the two groups are coming to a meeting to discuss peace and treaty because the townspeople, regular folk who aren't vampires or witches or any magical beings, they look at the witches and they think that you're causing black magic. or like you're doing evil things.
Yeah.
And like as far as Morgana, the protagonist, as far as she knows, like her family isn't involved in any of that. And then on the other side, the vampires are also blaming the witches because like we've noticed some of our people missing. And the witches like, well, we've noticed some of our people missing. And it's just as far as they know, like from what we've known for both sides, what they're saying is the truth so far. But the coven head's father, so the grandfather of the coven, he goes missing. He's the one who seems really belligerent towards the vampires, where the other witches are really just trying to make peace. And then turns out the vampires get poisoned by some of the blood that is served to them. So it's to me, it seems like there could be a third party at hand, or it could be somebody on the inside causing trouble. We don't know who, but that's yet to be seen. So it's interesting. But where things get involved with Morgana and Oz is Morgana is a struggling witch who has great power but struggles controlling it. She accidentally turns this vampire into a cat, and shenanigans ensue.
The lead male character into a cat. That's how they
Yes, that's how they meet, because she's talking and then she gets frightened because on the night that they're meeting for a treaty, they hear a big boom. And she gets scared and she thinks like, and then one of the vampires come out yelling, oh, it's an ambush. That she hears ambush and she gets scared, and she doesn't mean to cast a spell, but she casts a spell on accident that turns him into a cat, and he cannot turn back. Yeah. So yeah, shenanigans ensue. They try to work together to, one, cure him of the spell, but also figure out who is actually behind pushing these two groups to war, because it's clear from both of their positions, neither of the groups want war. They genuinely want peace. So we'll see. Things are going forward. Some romantic things are starting to boil to the top between the two characters. I like it because, of course, y'all know I like a small and a tall ship when it comes to the characters, and this time we get a tall girl with a slightly shorter boy, and I think they're adorable together because she's as tall as she is. She's just like this. She's like a flower, and then for him, he's just like buff and like short and looking up at her. And just like, but it's like the way in the promo, what made me read this is like in the promo, he's like, I love a man with confidence who can like literally, he's looking up and holding her by the chin, and she's just like blushing. And I'm like, you got me. So
I'm looking for that right now on the Mangago app. Let me check.
Yeah, it would actually be on Webtoon, unless like they also have it licensed on Mangago. But
Morgana. Okay, no. Is this it? No.
The vampire has white hair and a biker's jacket, so that it's to you. If you see that, then yes.
No, that's not it. But I will be looking up, because like honestly, when it comes to the webtoons and the manga, like there is the whole trope. Like you talk about the small and tall, but the whole thing is like usually it's the girl, the female character who's smaller.
Yeah.
Now the male character,
and daintier.
Even if you read like the yaoi, or the josei comics and those manga, those ones were even if it's just two male leads, if they're in a romantic relationship, the submissive, quote unquote, the submissive or the more emotionally immature one is always smaller than the dominant and emotionally mature male character. Which I'm just like, come on, it's like two male characters. Like, why are you people even still having gender like norms apply to, like you're supposed to be breaking it. It's like, we're not conforming to gender norms. I'm like, but you kind of are.
It's nice to see that like masculinity can be conveyed in different body types. Like I for one, like I joke all the time about like, yeah, I want a big tall broad man, but like I'm 5'4". It's more so about the confidence in the characters and in the person, and I like that this character gives off that confidence. Like he's just like looking at her so starry-eyed up and like holding her chin. And like on the artist's Instagram, when they posted the promo of it, I'm like, I'm sold. I don't even know what this is about, but I'm sold. And it's just like, she's a tall girl who like could come off as intimidating, and like she looks strong and everything, but it's nice to see her be able to like exude softness, which is like, I think that's something I'm interested to see explored more with characters and in like dynamics. That's the one. Carolyn found it, y'all. I I like exploring that more, where we see like, you know, masculinity and femininity can be shown in different character types and different body types. So yeah, the dominating, let's just say the dom doesn't have to necessarily be this 6'8" tall person. A dom could actually be someone who is, you know, my height. I don't know, if they got the confidence and the energy behind it, they can make it happen. But it's just like, in their case, I like that it's kind of switched, like their physicalities. Like, he's not the tall domineering one, whereas like she's tall but she's soft, and he's a little shorter than her but he's tough. It's just nice to see the range of feminine and masculinity against different characters, and it doesn't seem so archaic.
Oh no, it's different. I found it on the webtoon. I was looking at manga before. Then it was like, wait, I have the webtoon app on my phone.
Right.
And it's ongoing because it's up to episode 28.
Yeah. So, I unfortunately got hooked with the fast pass, and I gotta wean myself off of those, but it's worth it.
That's the thing with me, because sometimes I unintentionally took a break from reading like online manga and webtoons, and the thing was like, I don't, and I need to start doing this more, is I don't check to see if they're ongoing or if they're completed. And then when you get to end and it's ongoing, you're like, oh no. And then they're like, oh, this is the end of season 1. And you don't know when season 2 is going to be uploaded. And it's
listen, maybe next episode, I'll talk about that with one of my favorites. I think it's Brimstone and Roses. Man, it's good, but I swear the hiatuses, I just like, webtoon, whatever y'all did to these artists, whatever, like, because this is something important for people to know. Webtoon creators, artists, writers, like, there is a lot of work, just like there's a lot of work that goes into manga, there's a lot of work that goes into webtoon creators. And I don't think people always understand how much of a turnaround time crunch these creators are on. So I totally understand when they have to take a hiatus, because when you are not only just putting out weekly chapters, they also are putting out probably 4 weeks in advance, because they have their fast pass. So you got people who are trying to do this turnaround, and like, it's not like, you have creators on Webtoon who put things out at their own leisure and they update here and there. But for the people who are actually like doing this for a living, or like as one of their main sources of income, they are working tirelessly. They have a staff behind them. And if they don't have a staff, then it's just a 2-man team usually. And it's like, it's a lot of work that goes into it. So like, as much as I just be like, oh, great, another hiatus, I just be like, I get it. Y'all ain't have a break. Like, Brimstone and Roses is one of my favorite ones, and they've probably been on hiatus for over a year now. And like, and then I'm not saying this is a situation with them. There's also the issue of like, there's some like contract issues. There's been contract issues with some titles on Webtoon where like creators are not, like, I don't know what all the details are, but like, basically the creators can't say much, but they're basically like, well, I got to figure things out. That's why I'm not writing any more chapters. So it's just like, yeah, it's worth the wait. It's sometimes they're worth the wait. They're worth getting invested into, but the hiatus, man, it hurts.
It's just that when you reach the end and you're just like, wait, oh,
it hurts so bad. But I mean,
completed. And sometimes you don't even realize that it's not completed. Like, for instance, there's one I was reading called Their Door. That one is another I don't know if is Their Door considered yaoi? I think it's yaoi. But I read like the whole of the first chapter in like a couple nights, because I usually read them at night before I go to sleep. And then I was like, oh, and then I took like a long break. I was like, oh, okay, I'll come back to this like legit like 3-4 months later. And then they uploaded the whole second chapter. I was like, oh wait, we're gonna be finished. I'm like, wait, no, it's not done. And it's like 100 and something chapters.
Wow.
So far, and that's a lot. And like,
yeah,
and there's another one I started called Shutline. I need to stop doing this to myself. I need to just go and read the completed ones, because I'm just like, oh, I have. And I mean, even forget it. I should write a list, and then, but I might even forget that I even have a list of the ones that I'm reading anyway.
Even the completed ones. I mean, I can give you some recommendations for some completed ones that I've read. Like Gourmet Hound is a great one, and it's lengthy. So like, it would probably take you, like, if you read it nonstop, it would take you a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how frequently you read it. I got some completed ones I can recommend. Maybe that's what I'll do next time. I'll come on here with some suggestions if y'all want some completed webtoons that I do highly recommend, and you won't be frustrated because there are no hiatuses anymore.
And but then sometimes they get surprised when you go back and you'll be like, wait, let me just randomly check, and you'll be like, a new chapter has been added. And then sometimes what I find they do for a fair amount of the ones I read is that the writers will actually create like side stories. So they have a side story in the main plot, and then when they're completed with the main story, let me just go and extend the side characters and give them their own little resolution. Yeah, I was appreciative, which I think is kind of cool.
And there's spin-offs like that too. Yep. So there's plenty on Webtoon. Like I highly recommend if I ain't checked out Webtoon yet, go. There's plenty of other platforms, but like Webtoon is probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I used Webtoon, Mango, and there was another one, Manta. And then there was another one that I deleted that off my phone.
There's Pocket Comics. There's a lot. So y'all check them all out.
Mango was free. Webtoon. Webtoon? I don't think I did. Webtoon's free. But you need to pay for the updates. If you want like the updates, you pay for them, which I don't mind.
Right. I guess with that, then we're ready to move on to the TV corner.
Yes. So for TV corner, what I will be talking about today, I want to bring up the show info is The Last Days of Ptolemly Gray. That is an Apple TV show starring and also executive produced by Samuel L. Jackson. It stars Dominique Fishback, Cynthia K. McWilliams, Damon Gupton, Marsha Stephanie Blake, and Walter Goggins. And he's so good. Walter Goggins is so good. And the show is created, written by and based on a book by Walter Mosley. And this show made me cry. It's like it made me cry, and because it's about this man, Ptolemly Gray, who is 91 and is on the brink of sinking into dementia, but he experiences a seismic shift when given opportunity to briefly regain his memories, and he uses the fleeting lucidity to solve his nephew's death and to come to terms with his past. So this show, I knew what it was about, but I did not know what it was about. I never read the book before, but I knew what it was about because I received like a press release from Apple TV about it before its release, and there was a couple of interviews about it, and I didn't read some of the interviews because as I've mentioned on the show before, and for those of you who this is your first time listening to Stories That Happen, at the beginning of the show, when it was my book review, I mentioned cognitive impairment. So like I have multiple sclerosis, and part of that is I have mild cognitive impairment, MCI or RCI. And one of the effects of that is that it's causing memory loss. So I have short-term memory loss and I have long-term memory loss. So how long-term memory loss functions is there are days and weeks maybe, and like things that I don't remember. And the way how memory loss works, and how TV, film, fiction very rarely gets right about memory loss, is that you're not aware that you've lost the memory, that you're not aware of a memory that is no longer there. And this show, Ptolemly Gray, actually gets that. And while the show is about a man with dementia, possibly Alzheimer's, it's not clearly defined in the show, which I think is important because it can, like, there's many conditions that causes dementia and causes long-term memory loss, especially as you get older, like MS. And then of course there's like Alzheimer's, there's like Parkinson's, there's a whole host of neurological conditions. But what the show does get right about memory loss is how, when you realize that you're missing a memory, how heartbreaking that is and how traumatic it is and how stressful it is. And then even as you're aware of losing memories and losing time, it shows you like how also that again is heartbreaking and frustrating, and how as the person suffering with this, how you feel bad towards the people that have to look after you. Like I'm nowhere near that. I'm like nowhere near anywhere as bad as Ptolemly or as anyone with like severe dementia, especially as they get older. But like just for me, just the idea, just being able to comprehend what the show is about, I just like really appreciated the respect they played to it, and like how they showed is not only about the mystery of like solving the death of his nephew, but it's also the mystery of regaining your memories. So like an example of like short-term memory is like my dog had this little blue ball with like spikes, right? And she loved this ball and she played with this ball. And one day we lost the ball on the field, right? And I remember this ball for like maybe like a week after. And then I wasn't even aware that I had forgotten about the ball until I went into the dollar store the other day and I saw like the store, like that's where I bought the first ball. So I was like, oh wait, these are balls. I was like, wait, Yoko had this ball. She hasn't had this ball for like 3-4 months. And I forgot that she even had the ball. And I only remembered that she had it when I saw another one. So it's like this is a but I can't remember the exact term, but there's a thing called object permanence. And a lot of people with like ADHD, dyslexia, which I also have a thing, like if you don't see something and if you don't see it regularly, you don't remember that it exists. Right?
Got
so
you.
If you don't see, you're not aware that it's there. So like that's how it is. So like that's how short term and long term memory loss can operate. And so like for Ptolemly, he has the same thing where he is like his brain, like if you're not, your brain isn't seeing it, your brain doesn't store the information permanently. Or it does, but it's like deep in the recesses of your mind and you can't recall the memory because you're not aware of the memory that you have to recall in the first place. You know? So like even just the show getting those kind of things right where just like so happy with me and I cried and it's just it was a lot for me to watch, especially the time that I watched it. I was going through a severe case of like cognitive impairment. Like I had vertigo, I was having problems speaking, I was having problems recalling memories, just even like reading was difficult for me. So like the show was but I watched it at a very emotionally vulnerable time, but I would recommend anyone to watch it, not only to gain, I think, an insight into how it is for people with like cognitive disabilities, but also for people who have to look after them. So like for Dominique, her character, Robin, she's young, so she's about 17 years old and she meets Ptolemly almost purely by happenstance, but it's like destiny because they end up being falling in love, but it's a love where it's like you just love this person for who they are. It's not romantic, but it's just like, you know, it's like filial love, you know, like a true thing where she's like I love you for who you are and I understand you. And like then it's like he's like, I love you because you know who I am and you accept me for all of my limitations, and especially for somebody with disability, that means so much where you have somebody who accepts you for everything you are. And like when he has this opportunity to take this drug that could help him regain all of his memory, he wants to do it because he's like, I need to have my full control of my faculties in order to not only to. She was thinking it was to be able to find his nephew's killer, but it was more than that. It was just be able to find parts of himself that he had forgotten existed. And just like, I don't think people who don't have cognitive impairment or have those kind of conditions understand how hard it is to like just be worried about what it is you're missing and what it is you've lost and what it is you can't remember. Like even things like just being able to like find keys, it may seem like a trivial thing, but just like not being able to find keys, it makes you wonder, like, does this mean that my condition is getting worse? And it could be.
Right.
It could just be that you're just being forgetful, but you don't know. And that's one thing the show touches on, but it also shows like how from her perspective as caretaker, how much stress that puts on caretakers, especially as they're young. I just think the show did a fantastic job as Samuel L. Jackson. If he don't end up getting independent nominations for his performance in the show, things ain't right, things ain't fair. It ain't fair.
I mean, they still didn't show him accepting his Oscar.
Girl.
His honorary Oscar, which I'm like, y'all know he should have been had an Oscar, but we're not gonna get into that today.
Trifling. But it's really good. It made me cry. But also the mystery aspect of it, just like the mystery of like who is the killer, who killed his nephew. Then even when that's revealed, you realize there's like so much context to this because it talks a lot about violence and domestic violence in not only American culture but in the black community, and how women end up being caught in situations that they don't want to, and like you wonder, like, do you blame her for putting herself and her kids in this, but you realize she can't, but like, it's an abusive situation. So like just the whole the show like touches on a lot of societal topics and like very I think very well done. And Dominique Fishback, like she's such a good actress, like she's so good. Like we've started seeing her Power on Netflix, the film with Jamie Foxx, but then also her performance in Judas and the Black Messiah opposite Daniel Kaluuya. Like she's phenomenal. She's like, she has such a bright future ahead.
She's amazing. Yes, I just want everything for her as she goes on.
She's so good. And like, we know who Samuel L. Jackson is as a performer. We know his filmography is extensive. He is one of the most, if not the most prolific actor in Hollywood. And he is also the highest grossing actor in like history, because like we know his films, all of his films, like the amount of money his films have amassed, but like just that she's able to like go toe with him in scenes. Like their scenes together, like there's scenes where they're like just being soft and like comforting to each other, and then like also where they're just angry and like they're so like she was like phenomenal casting. I can't wait to see what she does in her future. And but that's the last days of Ptolemly Gray, and I think everyone that did a fantastic job. Like each episode was directed by a different director, so it's about 6. Let me look at. I want to be sure.
I look forward to watching it now, though, because I was going back and forth. Because anything that has to do with, I am sensitive about it because I'm still it's weird to say I'm still processing it, but like watching my grandfather go through Alzheimer's with his battle with that and dementia was probably one of the most hardest things I watched as a child. And I was like, our family, like obviously I wanted to be around him, so like, even when he couldn't remember me, but it's one of those things like, so anytime that there's a character like that in a show, I just be like, I'm going to pace myself because somebody's going to find me in a puddle somewhere of my own tears.
This is not a show right I'm binge watching. It's 6 episodes.
I'll take it easy.
I watched it over the course of, I believe, 2.5, 3 days. Okay. And as I said, I watched it when I was going through a lot. I'm still going through a lot because MS flare up. I'm trying to even remember the word. But has been ongoing since January. It's like it's eased up a bit. Like my cognition is a bit up. I can actually, for the last few days, I've been feeling it starting to go down. And the show explores that, like, there's ups and downs. And even there's a trick. It's such a small thing, but it's something that I think was like really important. So like there's a trick a lot of people who have memory issues do, and this like they associate names or things with other things. So like for me, when I sometimes I don't remember the name of a film or an actor, but I do word association. So I might not remember the name of a film, but I remember a scene from the film, and I'd be like, oh wait, I remember this scene from this film, and I remember it because it was wearing this specific thing or whatever. And like what he does in the show, what Ptolemly does is Robin, like he doesn't remember her name. He remembers, he associates her with the bird Robin. Right?
Got
it. So he will call her. He'll be like, he calls her bird. Because in his mind, he knows that a bird, that he associates bird with who she is as a person. So he's like, first bird of spring, right? So he calls her bird. And there's people that don't understand it, but she understood immediately what he was doing, because she was like, okay, he's not gonna remember my name, but he remembers that I'm bird. I'm bird to him because he knows my name is associated with the bird, the first bird of spring, but he doesn't remember the name of the bird. Right. So just those little things, that's something I myself do. I do word association to remember things, and like just those small little details, and like the show really explores that. So that's my recommendation. My show recommendation. Nice. The Last Days of Ptolemly Gray on Apple TV+. It's not available anywhere else because Apple TV is like Disney Plus, where they got their shit locked down.
Yes, that shit is locked down.
They probably VPN. I don't know VPNs, but I still don't even know how VPNs work. But
yeah. I'm not techy enough to explain that, so y'all go do your Googles. Give the money, because Samuel L. Jackson and Danielle for sure getting a little bit of that.
Yeah,
that should make you feel good, and then cut the trial.
The trial, yeah, do the
trial, watch all the Black shows, and then get out. Okay, so then for me, I actually have 2, but I'm going to keep it really short for them both. So first, Love, Death, and Robots came back, and I'm specifically going to talk about the last episode, Jabaro, because my God.
Is that the one with the pretty animation everyone is showing?
Yes, with the siren and the dancing.
Yeah, it's the one she's dripping in gold. The animation for that is, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the clips that everyone shows on Twitter, and it's stunning.
It's stunning on so many levels. The animation is just like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, you think it's a step above a high quality video game, but it's like so fluid, so beautiful. So like every detail is amazing, but they really push the limits with this animation style and like real people movements. I don't know how else to say that. Like just like the water looks like our water. It's not like I'm just watching and like, and I forgot both of these characters are animated when I'm watching it. Some of the shots just like they really do a great job of blending realism with with the like fantasy in the animation. And it's just like it's so crisp and it's so clean. But just a quick synopsis of it. A siren song fails to work on a deaf knight, Jabaro, and the Golden Woman becomes fascinated by him. And as y'all know, Love, Death, and Robots, they're known for the shorts, and they usually involve one of the three themes: love, death, and robots. In this case, it's love and death. No robots. But I always love Death and Robots because you're bound to find at least one or two that can really speak to you or that like maybe will like pop out and grab your attention. But this one is just very fascinating on a lot of different levels because like I've seen a lot of people talk about this episode and just like examine it from different ways because and like I'm not going to give too much away, but like I want to just like dissect some of it with y'all. Like as it says, Jabaro is a deaf knight. The knights are going on a conquest. They come across the river where the siren is. They don't say her name because no one talks in this entire thing. They make sounds, but you don't hear anyone say any words because a lot of it is heard from Jabaro's point of view. Since he's deaf, you see how he like cups his ear, and I think that's his way of feeling for vibrations. Or it's like, or he'll touch the ground, or there's things like that. So anyways, when all the other knights in the crusade are taken down by the sirens dancing and singing into the river and they're drowned there, Jabaro, it doesn't work on him exactly. He's just like staring at her and she's staring back at him. So there's this equal fascination. Now, the part that gets interesting is like he has the opportunity to flee and run. And I think a lot of people immediately at first, like, given what you know, I'm like, oh, here's this knight who was able to survive, who's like, and that's great. But then it's like, he makes the conscious choice to go back in order to, like, at first you think it's attraction, and then it turns into assault and theft. Because his goal was ultimately to steal the gold from her, because he's part of a crusade, which, as we know how most of the crusades went, that's there. So it's really this question of like, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's just like, it's fascinating to look from both perspectives of the characters because you don't know much of them because these shorts aren't giving you motivation or anything. The siren murders all of these men and drowns them without like, none of them did anything to her or threatened her. But like, she's a siren. So, hey.
What a siren does.
This doing what a
siren's called, you get killed.
You get killed. Exactly. But then it's like he makes the conscious decision to go back. And at first, what you think is affection and maybe romance because she's fascinated by him. And maybe it's because this is the first man who does not fall under her spell and can get close to her. And there's a little romance, but then she bites him and she's about to devour him. So it's just like, oh, neither of you are right in this sense. But at the same time, I picked the side of the siren because she a baddie and I love her design. It's just like, it's an interesting conversation point for me because it's just like, at the end of the day, greed got to the best of them. Greed more so for Jabaro, but I think it's like greed and curiosity, where the siren is like, I don't want this one to get away, tries to lure him back, and he steals all the glittering jewels from her body and kills and disposes of her. And I don't want to tell any more because I think y'all should see how it ends.
I'm here looking up because I have not seen it. And one of the reasons I haven't seen it is because Netflix does a shit job of promoting their content. Unless it's content by rich white people starring rich white people, they barely do any promotion. So like, this is the third season of Love, Death, and Robots.
Yes,
this did not promote the second season at all, to the point that to the point that the third season came out and people were like, wait, the second season happened?
And I wonder if they're just doing this new thing because I saw a lot of promotion for it, but like, It's not like I
was it official Netflix promotion, or was it just a lot of people talking about it on social media?
It was Netflix promotion for me, but I think it's also a thing about like, I don't know if it's just a situation of the algorithms at this point where like, it's because Netflix doesn't promote things like this. I don't think they're going to promote a show like Love, Death, and Robots on TV, but they will do it on social media. But like for me, I saw a lot of it on Instagram. Now, I can't speak for anything else because I don't think I saw, until you see people like, unless they talked about like, oh, it comes out next week. I saw probably promotion mainly the week before and then leading up. Actually, no, I saw it a little bit before that because I thought it was coming out the week before. So it's like, I think it's interesting because Netflix is one of those where it's like, well, y'all don't advertise on outside of social media. And unless it's like a big film or a big name attached to it. So it's interesting where it's like, yeah, when it comes to like a show like you, I'm sure everybody has seen a Stranger Things commercial. They're all over, which is my other show that I'll be talking about. But anyways, now I found the article that I think best describes Jabaro. It's basically a look at a toxic relationship between two predators.
Yep.
Which is fascinating to me when you think about it. Like, you have a toxic relationship with two predators. Watch what unfolds.
So I'm looking at the names. The writer and one of the directors is Alberto Miego. He's won Oscars. He won an Oscar for Best Animated Short Film in 2022 and also in 2021. And he also worked, I believe, on, and looking at his filmography, he worked on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. He's worked on Tron Uprising. So he is worked with Ubisoft. His mind, because when you think of that, you're talking about like even just the clips that I've seen, unless you know that this is a clip from an animated project, you would not know that it's from an animated project.
You would not.
It looks like photography. It looks like it looks like photography.
And it's not until you actually take a look at their faces and like really look at them and you're like, okay, from a distance or like when it's being animated, you think it's like actual people.
Yeah, like the one when she's in water and you see her eye just that's the one, that's the shot. That is the shot.
The shot
really establishes the whole how beautiful it looks like a photograph. It looks like a real person and that they photographed, but it's not. It's like pure animation. And the cast, for the voice and I'm guessing they do the motion capture too. Is like the lead. Is, Jervan. I want to make sure I get his full name because he's a stuntman too. He's been in like Dune, Ready Player One, SWAT and stuff. He's an actor and stuntman. And his name is Jervan Brambo, and he plays Jabaro. And then there's Sarah Silkin, who is the dad sister. She's the one who plays the siren.
Right. Because the interesting thing about the siren is that, like, because this is from the perspective of Jabaro, there's no words. You do hear the siren scream, but the way that she actually lures the men into, like, through dancing.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah, because in mythology, because sirens are from Greek mythology, I believe. They lure men because sirens from Greek mythology. They're usually mermaids.
There's different. There's like different ones.
But she's around water, right? So like mermaids and like in mythology is like they lure men, pirates, sailors to the rocks, to crashing to the rocks, so they can steal their treasure. And they lure them by using their voices, and their bodies. Right, and they lure them by using their bodies. So it's interesting that they did for this one. They I think for Alberto and his co-writer, where they decided that we're going to make the male, the protagonist, the other predator, a deaf man who can't be lured in by her voice. We're going to use her body to lure him in. So like that's interesting, and that's the thing with the Love, Death, and Robot series. I haven't seen the second series because, as I said, I forgot it even happened. But the first one. A lot of the series, there's one in particular, a Japanese anime, where she is a kitsune. So until Fox.
The Fox spirit,
right, the Fox spirit. So a lot of these stories revolve around like male and female dynamics about sexuality, and and like how men see women's bodies and how women see women's bodies and how women see men's bodies and like that kind of stuff. So like a lot of these stories have that kind of dynamic. So it's like interesting that for like that this one they have that same thing, but they use their like certain aspects. Like it's all about physicality. It's all about the body and the looks, and all about the song or being lured in. But you can't be swayed by what she's saying, So I think I'm gonna watch because I do want to watch because the animation is stunning.
If there's one that you watch, if you only watch one, I would say this is the one.
This is the one that everyone talks about. Like, you know, from the first season, everyone talked about, the one that everyone talked about was
the girl that saw the death.
From the first season? No, the thing Blue.
Oh yeah, there's that one. There's a lot. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of great gems from that first season. Whereas, like from the second season, I think there were some good ones, but like third season, this one stood out a lot to me.
Right.
Where it's like, it's just very thought provoking. Because, like I said, like who would have ever thought of like, let's put two predators like in a relation, like not even a relationship. What happens when you have two predators in a toxic relationship? This is exactly it. So yeah, but I do warn y'all, like it's not that so I will say it's not sexual assault that happens for anyone who is concerned when I said assault earlier. It's more so of assault is still assault, but I can understand if people feel different. It's right, there's a differing of degrees for everyone who has a trigger warning around those things. So I'm just giving y'all a heads up. It's not that it's necessarily a sexual assault, like visually, that's not what's happening, but there is an assault of a more physical kind.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm damn near close to telling y'all everything. So yeah, y'all, if there's only one you watch, go watch it. Other thing, gonna keep it brief because you can also get more of my extended thoughts on the Why Though YouTube channel. Stranger Things. Big takeaways from this. And quick synopsis. 11's in California living with Will and his family. All the other kids are scattered around. And guess what? There is once again something after 11 and trying to break into their world. Shocker. But the interesting thing is season 4, volume 1, because volume 2 will come out in June, which will be like 2 very big episodes. So it's going to be like, I think one's an hour and a half and the other one's 2 hours. My whole thing with this is it's interesting. Like biggest takeaways are it's interesting to see the dynamics of the boys, like in the friend crew as they are now entering freshman, as they're about to finish their freshman year and entering spring break. You know, I think a lot of this season is about change, accepting who you are, where you're at right then, especially when it comes to 11 trying to live without her powers and adjusting to life without them, but then realizing that she needs to figure out a way to get them back. Then there's also, the relationship dynamics between the guys, because you have Lucas, who suddenly has become a jock. He's gotten taller since freshman year. He's on the basketball team.
They're whole adults now.
These children are literally whole adults.
They're all being played by adults now.
They are, but it's so weird to like look at how like young they were in the face when they started, and now it's like, oh my God, you're like actually an 18-year-old child. Like they're still children to me because until you're over the age of 22, I don't look at you as an adult. Yeah,
when we say adults is like, but some of them are older. Like the one whose brother is like in his mid-20s.
Oh yeah, no. The older ones, like the teenagers. Well, the ones who were older. Mike's sister is definitely an adult. Will's brother is an adult. It's just, I think this was a great season from where everything started for the characters. Cause they're a tight knit crew, but things change, people grow. I think there's a lot of that. I feel one of the best moments for me was that the character Max got so much shine that she did. And that actress got a lot more focus on her character. Like this season, when she's introduced, she's the new girl. Then she becomes Lucas's girlfriend / 11's best girlfriend. But this season you actually got to just focus on Max after she's dealing with the death of her brother from the aftermath from the previous season, and she's dealing with grief, survivor's remorse, and all these other things. On top of, there is a supernatural being that is going around and killing people by crunching up their bones, and it's a very visual thing, but the horror is magnificent. But the body horror, oh my God. If it's not your cup of tea, hit that skip button. But for me, I love horror, and this season definitely brought more horror and a darker side to it. And I think they did it really well. That didn't make it stand out. Honestly, the whole season does feel like they got inspiration from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. not number two, but like I'm just saying TOO. Anyways, if y'all want to hear more of my thoughts about it, and also CJ and Aaron of But Why Though, two other writers for the website, we were on the YouTube channel. We're on the But Why Though podcast community YouTube channel where y'all can watch that there. So I'll be sure to link it in the notes. And yeah, that's it for my TV shows. So I guess we can go ahead and dive into, last thing, we got more Erica, and I was very happy.
Yeah, she was the best part of season 2. Let's keep it real.
She was.
I haven't seen season 3, and I don't know if I'm going to see season 3. I have issues with it, partly for the fact that they filmed scenes in a former Nazi death camp, and then decided to turn it into an attraction for the show. Oh, come watch where we film Stranger Things. Yeah, that's where Jews were killed. Yeah.
That bothers me.
I'm like, yeah, Netflix, go. You could have built a set. That would have been fun, but you really got to go use a permanent Nazi death camp to film scenes and be like, oh, it's a hotel. No, really. So I have my issues with Netflix and that. So I don't know if I even be watching it. And I'm not a fan. I don't mind body horror, but with its like extensive and gratuitous, I
would say if it's not your cup of tea, like you're a strict no body horror person, you can skip through the scenes and avoid them. But if it's not for you, you might be better off not watching it. Yeah, but it doesn't happen every episode. That's probably the more important part. This isn't like a Saw movie where like it's gore. It's not. It's not that. That's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. So we won't do that. So we'll move on to our film section. And for me, as I said, it was having a rough month. April and May were rough for me. Mm-hmm. I watched films, but I was going also on top of the economy pyramid was going through a depressive episode. And here's the thing with depressive episodes and this when you watch things, sometimes that your mind just isn't there. Like, I watch things and it's just like I feel nothing for them. And it's not necessarily that the films or whatever were bad. It's just that I was just not emotionally invested. I just wasn't interested. I watched them and then I'd be like, and then I could go back a few months later and watch them like, this was amazing. But at the moment, I did watch some films. I watched some Japanese films like by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I watched his film. Well, it's not film. It's a series of films. The series is Penance, which is interesting. It's kind of like an omnibus. And it's like an anthology series. Films, I have one more in the series to watch. It's like 5 of them completely. And I watched another one of his films called Creepy. That one was interesting. Then I watched some Korean films like Along with the Gods and some other Korean films that I don't remember right now. My brain is blanking on the names. So instead of me doing a full recap on films today, we will have LaNeysha. She's going to talk about Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, which I have yet to see as well.
Which you may be able to see it. I don't know how it works in Canada, but I do know that it will be out later. I've heard later this week. So as when we're at the time that we're reviewing this, but yes, I went ahead and I braved the theaters to watch Multiverse of Madness, and I gotta say, I don't think it deserves the hate it has gotten. I enjoyed it. I found it to be a good movie. I think a lot of people had different expectations for different things. I'm not going to speak on the America Chavez stuff, mainly because one, I'm not that well versed with the character, but I do understand the critiques that some people have had. And I implore y'all to check out some people who have like actually had very good points to make about that. Specifically, I will say this. Yeah. Not going to knock a young actress, but I understand people's frustration when you choose to cast the actress who is of lighter skin tone than the actual character. And I don't want to hear people who say that like, but what about when it's the reverse way and a character was white and they were black, or when they were this or that? I'm like, I'm not going to have that debate with y'all. I'm just not. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's very telling when we have a character that was introduced at a certain skin tone, and then when that character does not have that skin tone, and it's harmful because a lot of people appreciate the representation. So that's all I'm going to say regarding America Chavez. Besides that, I think the young lady who played her did an amazing job. I really enjoyed it, but I will let me just get into it because the debates on Twitter have been fascinating, and I'm glad that it's finally stopped. And that's why I'm talking about it now. But anyways, Dr. Stephen Strange cast a forbidden spell that opens a portal to the multiverse. However, a threat emerges that may be too big for his team to handle. So that's not exactly what happens, but you got to have some sense of mystery to this. But anyways, that's how it's going to happen right now when I give y'all my spoilers. So if you want, I do say this, you do need to watch WandaVision before you watch Doctor Strange. Or you at least need to have a working knowledge of what happened in WandaVision to know what happens in Doctor Strange, because it is important to know how the characters got to where they are now. With that being said,
the problem with the Marvel films, like Marvel and Star Wars, they come with the full knowledge of it.
I don't think we have to have like a full encyclopedic knowledge for everything. Like it's fine for some things like Moon Knight. I like that Moon Knight can operate by itself without having previous knowledge. Like
Moon Knight characters completely, right? And they're like even in a new part of the world. Like they before Moon Knight, they never even really went to the Middle East in any of the films or shows. So like, it's like new context. Same thing with Black Panther. Black Panther is like a whole new introduction to the Dora Milaje, and it was an introduction to the people of Wakanda. Right, in Africa. So before then, they had never even really filmed on anything about the African continent. So like it's kind of the same thing. Whereas like for all of these the ones mainstream, you gotta have some kind of idea. Like they expect everyone who's watched these films to have watched all of it. And I think that's the problem with Disney in general and MCU and Star Wars. Like they think they operate with the premise that everyone in the world, that everyone who's ever watched these things have watched the things that came before.
But see, I disagree only because like it's really heavily communicated that this involves this character. Like specifically when we're talking about Star Wars is like spans across 2 trilogies plus some other stuff. So it is important to watch the trilogies if you want to know that contained story within them. But within those contained stories, they explore more of the universe. So like the Clone Wars is a perfect example. It's a spin-off of the trilogies that takes place, but it allows for there to be more of a story developing and telling more of the universe. So you don't have to watch all the trilogy movies to watch Clone Wars, because Clone Wars does a good job of setting up everything and telling you who the people are and everything. But then you have something like Rebels that continues it, but you don't have to necessarily go and watch all of the things because they do a good job of continuing it.
You just need to know the Clone Wars to understand what the heck is going on in Rebels.
Not necessarily, because if you start Rebels, you don't have to know everything about what happened in Clone Wars, because they do a good job of still explaining it along the way. At least in my
when he meets the former Imperial soldiers and the former clone soldiers and stuff, like they say things like, because I've seen Rebels, I've seen season 3. I don't think I've seen season 3. I fell off from it. But it's like they say things, and that things that even Ezra and the others haven't mentioned. So unless you have the prior knowledge of the Clone Wars and the other films, you'll be like, what the heck are they even talking about?
And if that's the case, then I do question people like, why are you watching it if you know it's a part of it's a spin-off. It's a spin-off, sis. It's a spin-off. If it's a spin-off of something and you don't know, then sometimes you got to either go crack up the Wikipedia and find out what is Order 66. Because unless there's a character like Ezra and someone's going to do the disposition work to, like, not disposition, whatever it's called, if they're going to do the work of using Ezra as a character to explain to Ezra, oh, Order 66 was this, and I fought in a war, and then the clones attacked us. No one's going to know. But then I think it all depends on, like, I don't know. It's at everyone's discretion. I just feel like if it's something that's a spin-off of a bigger series or a trilogy, you have to expect that, like, yeah, you might have to go back and watch something, but it's not like with Doctor Strange, you don't have to watch Thor to know what happens to make sense of Doctor Strange. That's all, like, so, but anyways, getting back to Doctor Strange. Honestly, going back to what I said, I did not mind a lot of the things that some other people felt like they didn't enjoy. Like some stuff that I did mind though, like calling it Multiverse of Madness and us only spending like time in really like 3 different universes. I actually wanted more.
You wanted more of the universes?
I wanted to see more of the universes, but like when I have to stop and think about, I'm like, now when would they have time to go to more than 3 and like keep the story going? And they do this nice little quick thing where you see them traveling through multiple universes, so you get a glimpse of them. But I guess like when I think of Multiverse of Madness, I was thinking of
everything everywhere all the time seems to have
they figured it out.
Percentage of the budget.
Yeah, they figured out how to do it. I was just thinking, I'm like, could we get a little bit more?
Girls explored in that one. I haven't seen the film, but from the clips we've seen, I've seen probably at least 10 to 15 different universes, and
yeah,
one of the film.
Yeah, and I get that like it's a different premise and it's going about it in a different way because like there is a story that they have to tell and everything. But I do like it for, and like I'm assuming you don't care about spoilers, right?
Girl, spoil away.
Okay, I was just checking with you. For the audience, y'all are already warned y'all. But biggest things that made me happy, we got Mr. Fantastic. And we got Charles Xavier. And yes, it's our Charles Xavier. It is Patrick Stewart Charles Xavier. And Mr. Fantastic was John Krasinski. Like a lot of...
So that's why people were... okay. So I saw that clip and I was wondering if it was a fan edit because it did not look good.
It's the one that people have been wanting. And I like the beauty of this is like, I love the multiverse trope in comics and in series because the beauty of this is like, John Krasinski and Patrick Stewart could come back and reprise their roles if like they want to introduce the mutants or if they ever want to introduce the Fantastic Four in the main MCU universe that we know to exist. I think we're 616. And that would be fine. And they could do that. But we could also never see Patrick Stewart because we don't know if the X-Men exists in MCU 616. And we don't know if the Fantastic Four, they've hinted at it. And it's like, I think that's the beauty of it. You can really use this as a sandbox. Like this movie is like a sandbox to me. We're like, y'all could have thrown in, I don't know, Shuri could have been on the Illuminati and been Black Panther. As a like, I'm just saying that's something they could have done. And it just would have been like, yup, well, it's an alternate universe. So yeah, of course, that's fine. So it's just like, because like there's this whole thing because what Steven is doing, it's something that's been done before by a Doctor Strange in his universe. They tell him you have to stop because what you're doing is dangerous. The whole thing with America Chavez is that she has a power that Wanda, because big reveal, Wanda is the villain of the movie, is after because she wants to be reunited with her children that she accidentally created and brought into reality when she was grieving her husband, her android husband. Sorry, I should not make fun of them, but I do. But it's
not real. The kids ain't real.
Yeah, the kids ain't real, but like they do exist. But the problem is because Wanda basically at this point has control over has dang near reality bending powers. Those children do now exist in an alternative reality, or the children have always existed. She just brought their existence into her reality where they don't exist because they're the one universe where she does not have her children, or at least doesn't have them yet. So yeah, it's interesting. But getting into Wanda really quickly, for everybody who did not like that Wanda turned into a villain, I honestly don't see the problem with it. Because as we saw in WandaVision, it makes it like I've seen a lot of people say that it doesn't make sense that Wanda turns into a villain. As we saw and as we discussed in WandaVision, that was a point in Wanda's path where she had made a decision, even with grief. Grief is still not an excuse to manipulate and control people, and she knows what she did was wrong. But Wanda has gotten to a point where she does not care. And when she got to that point, and like, sure, she accepted Vision's death, but the problem was she has the dark hold that's starting to manipulate and influence her too. So by Wanda doing all of this, taking on the dark hold, I don't know. To me, it's a straight 2 + 2 = 4. Wanda's influence by the dark hold equals she becomes a villain because she's willing to sacrifice anyone's life. She's willing to sacrifice the universe in order to get what she wants, even if it does mean that she's doing it out of love. It shows, Wanda to me shows like this is what happens when you are so motivated by your own goal that you are willing to hurt and harm others. And like, that's not love. And like, that's the message when it comes to Wanda's arc. Like, it's fine that you've lost and you've loved and you've processing grief and you're processing pain, but like your issue, like it's the fact that Wanda makes her grief, her pain, her desires more important than anybody else's. And by that, she's willing to kill a child, an innocent child, so she can have her children. That's the same thing that people keep telling her every point. And she's just like, but I'm a mother. I'm like, I don't care.
You watch Sophie's Choice?
Right. But it's just an interesting thing because a lot of people will be like, well, she did it for her kids. I'm like, so it's okay for her to take a life of an innocent child in order to get her children back?
Yeah, but like, what about the other? I'm like, what you gonna do when that kid's mother come to whoop your ass? You can't complain, just let her beat you.
I would like
that. Just let her beat you.
Right. Just let her beat you. Just let her beat you. And then also, because like I feel like it'd be remiss not to mention a little bit about Doctor Strange. This movie is really about him learning that he can't control everything, and that he is not. I mean, that his thoughts and his decisions are not thoughts. That his choices are not infallible. And I think he already knew that because he's still dealing with the fact that he was the one that said it was the only way to win and beat Thanos. Excuse me. And you see that some people have issues with that, with what he said. Granted, it's
he
like
said it. No one knew if it was true or not. That's just what.
Well, and I saw an interesting point that someone said.
Word at face value.
Right, and I saw an interesting thing that someone said, and they're like, at the end of the day, Doctor Strange is self-preserving. He's a very self-preserving character, and like you're right. Because there no situation where you could have sacrificed yourself and you all win? And like, we don't know.
There could have been. Probably you can tell me although that 1 million however many options in your ass dying isn't one of the ones, especially considering how powerful you are. You're gonna find a way to beat Thanos. When you got Carol Danvers, they're flying all about the place. When you got Wanda Maximoff, who single-handedly could have ended Thanos right then and there, but he had all of this power then.
But Tony was the one. Tony was the one who had to be the one to die. That was the only play.
That was the only play. Out of all these options, I don't buy it.
I don't buy it either. And it's just like, yeah, but I mean, I think that's a good point. I think it was Fantastic Frankie on Instagram who made a quick video about it. She's like, yeah, when you really stop and think about it, this character brings it up to him. He's like, was that truly the only way? Because
I never trusted it, because if you look at how many people died, how many white people died, Nisha, how many white men died? Apart from Peter, take Peter out of the equation. How many white men died? Not many. I
mean, died and came back. I mean, Tony, the only one who technically really died then.
He didn't get dusted, did he?
Nope. Tony, the only one.
Who got dusted was Peter. Everybody else that got dusted.
Well, and Star-Lord and Winter Soldier. So
I don't think about Star-Lord. He don't count. So he doesn't really, he like, my brain just is like, who?
I know. But yeah. It's an interesting thing to ponder, but I do think because of in this, he takes on a mentor role to America. So he takes on this mentor and protective role to America. And it's like, he does not want to let her down, but it's like his own hubris is his lesson. Like, he's like, you have to learn your limitations, and you are not the only one who can defeat the villain and save the day. It is like, sometimes you have to acknowledge that other people need to hold the knife. And yes, that is a line from the movie. And I will leave y'all with that, because I'm sure there's more. But, and this movie definitely, Sam Raimi, sir, you snapped with the horror. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I mean, I just give Sam Raimi more superhero movies to make horrific looking, because I love it so much. And that's it. That's all I got.
That's it. I have thoughts on. I have not watched it, but from what I've read and from what you guys know how I feel about Wanda. I love this series. Great acting, fantastic acting.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole white woman feminism thing, white women willing to kill a child of color to further her goals, protect her imaginary two white children. I got issues with that whole narrative. I have issues with the whole they're presenting motherhood.
But I think that's the point of just showing that, like, she's a villain and she's going to do villainous things in this, So it's like, yeah, no. For me, this solidifies that Wanda went too far. So this is not WandaVision where Wanda is like remorseful and feels bad about what she's doing and feels conflicted about. Like, no, Wanda confidently is ready to kill this child in order to bring her children back.
But that's my whole thing. That's my problem with the MCU. Like, why are they hinging this whole thing on you're gonna bring America Chavez, a child of color, a Latina color, a character who's supposed to be, if I remember correctly, supposed to be Mexican American.
Actually, she's not. So
not Mexican American, Puerto Rican or something. I mean, from the comics. I mean, comics she's supposed to be Puerto Rican.
No, it's not that. I think she is she's coded as Puerto Rican. So in the comics, she's actually an alien from another planet. So she's not, we can't really call her Mexican American, but I think someone had told me this a while ago that she takes on the appearance. And that's not the case, but it's just like her nationality. I don't know. Y'all have.
But the point is that they were hinging the whole premise of this entire story on this white woman killing a child.
Because she's a villain,
A child of color.
Right, because she's a villain. She don't care.
No, but my problem is not just about the villain. My thing is just like, I have a problem with the MCU using people of color as cannon fodder. Now, you guys know how I feel about Endgame. Hey, that's how we started this whole podcast with me ranting, talking.
We did. But see, I guess I don't see America as cannon fodder only because, like, I think we're starting to see the birth of the next generation of Avengers in the MCU. Whereas, like, you know, what's the other show? Miss Marvel premiered that premiered on Disney Plus. Disney Plus. Yeah. So Miss Marvel's out. We know Peter Parker, Spider-Man is still out there and he's still existing. No one just knows who he is. And now we have America Chavez. So it's like you're bringing in this new generation of heroes. I think as it continues to do this is just their way of starting to introduce them. Oh, and then you have Kate Bishop with Hawkeye. So like that's now 3 girls. Yeah, so that's like 4 next Avengers who like they're slowly introducing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have preferred for America to be introduced through a series better, but because of her powers, which spoiler, America has the power to travel through the multiverse. She's the only person who has that power. So like that's the only reason about like having her here.
Yes,
makes sense as like
as a prop.
Like, but it's like, yeah, so like I guess if you're gonna do a movie about the multiverse, this is the way to do it with her in it. But it's just like I do like that she doesn't become a prop she's not a prop towards the end. She's not just a plot device for Wanda and Doctor Strange to fight over. She ultimately America saves the day. So it's like I think that's the one saving grace by them doing it this way, because yes, it makes sense for her to be in this movie because she's the only being who can travel across the multiverse as far as we know. And yeah, that's about it. But at least they didn't make it where if Doctor Strange was the one to save her in the end, I think that's where I would have been like, well, I don't like that y'all put this girl here at all, because what did she do?
yeah.
I know.
When it comes to the MCU, I'm just tired and over it. We're going 25 plus films, going over 22 years. Like, it was bound to hit, like, it was for some reason. It was going to hit a plateau. And it hit its plateau for me with Black Panther. Everything since then has been just like a steady decline. And it's like not surprising when you have the same team of writers, same team of writers, same creative staff and everything. Like, you're going to get creative burnout. You're going to get creative, like, and like this is no diss on, like, I'm not minimizing anyone's ability to create, like, because writing, directing, the God knows the production and like the
right
after that's what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about like there would have been eventually a time where the MCU just get tired and you're just like, oh my God, can you guys do something else now? We're tired. The same, like even introducing the new generation of Avengers is just like, oh, we're still the Avengers. It's still the same. Like we're just like, do something else. Like Disney has not done anything truly original in like the last 10, 15 years. And you can talk about the animated shows and the films, but when you talk about animated films, like when you got people like Lin-Manuel Miranda working all of them and they all sound the same, like, come on.
I mean, you know how I feel about him literally making the soundtrack of every movie. Not saying like, again,
that's the originality is lacking here. They have some vision. Like all of these amazing song directors, all these amazing composers. You have a whole planet full, and you keep hiring the same guy over and over and over who's producing music that sounds exactly the same. Like people talk about, don't talk about Bruno and all the other songs. I'm like, don't talk about Bruno songs just like that the one from the Three Sisters in the play. It sounds just like about the one with not Angelica, the other one she's talking about, the sister. Mm-hmm. It's legit the same. I'm like, oh my, Disney has a very big problem with, I think, originality and just imagination. It's the bankruptcy of imagination. Even the films they keep remaking, it's the same. They're remaking the same stories over and 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 over again.
I mean, I can't deny the fact that I don't think any of us can deny the fact that like family seems to have been the main villain or theme in the last few, because Coco and then Moana, or whichever, I can't remember which one came first, and then like Coco Turning Red. Okay, so Coco, Moana, Turning Red, and then we also have.
I'm wrong. It was Moana then Coco, because it was Coco was in 2017, and I remember because I went to Pixar, and that's when I was doing film. That's when I started film criticism. And Moana was when I was still in school. So yeah, Moana and then Coco.
Yeah, so it's either like friendships and relationships and family have been like the main villain, which like when it's done differently, I enjoy it. But like, I mean, I can't.
The main villains in these stories also, the female matriarchs. Moana, it was a female entity. Mm-hmm. Coco, the grandmother, them not understanding why grandmother didn't want them to do
right. She's like the Deutero
that it was the singer. Mm-hmm. And then in the madrigals, the last one with the madrigals, the grandmother, the matriarch again, a female character is the villain.
And then Turning Red, grandmother,
the aunt, the grandmother. WandaVision, the mother, a mother figure. Mm-hmm. Multiverse of Madness, another female figure. There's a huge issue in the MCU with Disney with how they're portraying female characters. Like,
I wouldn't say that's so much an issue for me. I'm just saying, I understand. I get your opinion when it's like how they're portraying them, but I don't think it's an issue with how they're portraying these characters, because like we can think of when we're talking about with like the mothers in Turning Red, or God, I'm blanking. Casita. What is it called?
I know I can't remember the name. That's why I just call it the Family Madrigals. I just don't remember the name.
Why am I blanking? Anyways, okay, them. I felt bad. But it's just like, because we can think someone knows or can recognize a family member within those character types, where it's like you have the grandmother who you can't live up to their expectations, and like you don't feel like they love you as much. Or you have Encanto. Thank you so much. It was bothering me. But like, I can see that. So I don't think of those as being issues, because those are like actual problems in like a family that like, and it explores it as like, well, what if this is like, because they're not the villain like how Wanda is the villain.
Like, when I say villain, I don't mean necessarily that they're just evil, but I mean like they're set as antagonists.
Like the conflict between the characters.
They're the antagonists. They're a problem that have to be overcome. They have to be taught. They have to be educated. And I say it's an issue, not necessarily with the writing or whatever, but it's a pattern. It is a pattern with these productions. And when you see that there's a pattern, to me, this is just me being critical of putting on my thing, they're trying to put out a certain message. Because I also people, when it comes to film and Hollywood, and nothing is accident. No, nothing's by accident. Nothing is coincidental. Everything is planned. We know the MCU plans all of their things years in advance, 10, 15 years in advance. When they got like D23, or when they do their MCU day, whatever, they show us like plans for films 10 years down the road. So when we get these kind of stories and they all have similar threads, similar narrative threads, not just about if you're talking about the Avengers that you're connecting all the stories from the comics, but when you have like all of they select specific themes and narratives and plot devices, and they're telling a story, and it's not an accident that a lot of them are setting up women as antagonists. Apart from Thanos, when you look at how the female characters are portrayed, a lot of them are more antagonistic than the men, even though we know that the male characters are like looking at Tony. Like he's never really been punished for all the shit he's done. Whereas female characters have been killed. Natasha, you got Wanda, you got Palm Clementine's character, all the shit that she went through. Mantis, sorry, all of the things that these female characters go through. Not only, but again in Disney, you're looking at the animated films too. There's an issue there. There's a pattern, and I don't like this pattern. I don't like what they're trying to say about women. I don't like what they're trying to say about femininity and motherhood. I'm like, if writers go start your shit like Kevin Feige. If you got a problem with mothers, go to therapy. Start that out in therapy and stop having your writers, because he is in charge of the kind of stories that are being told in the MC in their films. Like remember when I went to the Coco press junket at Pixar, they were like, yeah, we come up with these stories, and the executives, they tell us what direction they want the stories to take. Yeah. So I'm like, y'all got issues with mothers, y'all got issues with women. And we've seen what's been going on with Disney and the whole LGBTQ and like the whole backing these politicians. We know they back like conservative politicians.
So, like, don't get me started on that, because I'm already irritated that my favorite animated series that's currently on Disney Plus that has great LGBTQ representation. Yes. Because like, well, we can cut this part out, or maybe we could put it as a bonus, because like I know we're getting a little long, but it's like they're doing exactly what Nickelodeon did to Avatar, with Korra, where it's just like people. I mean, at this point, I'm just like, just make it a Disney Plus exclusive series, because since y'all just want to be like, y'all not even gonna give them a third full season. Y'all are giving them 4 extended episodes that are like 45 minutes each. So they're like little mini movies. But it's just like, just call a spade. Disney, like, y'all talk about representation and you talk about how y'all want this for that and this. And like, here we are in Pride Month, and I bet y'all gonna post something about these characters. But here you won't give the showrunner and the creator for the show, which I would say Owl House is one of the most original things Disney has come out, next to Amphibia, which also a great series, but like that has come out from Disney as an animated series that's original. Like original characters, original. It's like, no, it's like it's taking a isekai Western theme, but it's like, yeah, here are some tropes that you know when it comes to a girl who gets transported to a magical world, but here's some very original storylines. Yeah, you can cut that out.
No, this is how our conversation is going. We will keep it.
Y'all heard Carolyn. We will keep it. But since we have gone a little long, maybe we should just do a state of Marvel things. Because like I do appreciate your insight on it. Because I'm like keeping Disney out of it. Like when we just look at the Marvel movies as a whole for the MCU, I guess I'm just like, I am interested to see the direction of it, but I'm also just like, I just kind of want to see it unfold, because like personally, I don't feel the need to watch everything, and that's only because unless it's like, there's ones that I'm like, I'm very excited about Daredevil coming back, and I'm eager to see what y'all do with that, with it being on Hulu exclusive, hopefully. I like the fact that Moon Knight exists on his own little bubble right now, and like I wouldn't mind continuing that if Moon Knight can come back. I don't think there's a reason for him until like there's an actual reason or threat that arises for him to interact with, like, it would be natural for him to interact with the Eternals before anyone else.
Yes.
Like or something like even,
that. That Panther and the Durmalaja, because they're on the same continent.
Bast, right? Or like because Bast exists in 2 entities, exactly. and then there's also Thor, Love and Thunder, where we get a glimpse of Bast. So it's like, you know what? As Marvel builds out more of the theologic themes in the universe and they establish more of these things, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But I don't feel like there's any need for, I guess, our Captain America, who is current, like, you know, for Sam and Bucky to meet Moon Knight.
I have issues with the whole fact that they're sort of story, but yeah, they don't. And that's again the other thing, like they're trying to make everything connect. They're not making these people exist within their own realities and their own lives and have their own self-contained story. Like we don't need to have like a big mass meetup. Like we don't need a club meetup. Like just communicate through Zoom. Like, you know, they all know each other. That's fine. That's good. Like no need to make them.
At this point, I would just be more interested to see how is everything operating with everyone who currently still identifies as an Avenger. just because it's like what we know from Shang-Chi, we do know that like, okay, Bruce is still communicating. We know that She-Hulk is coming. So there's these anchors across the MCU. And I'm more so curious about like, what is the state of the Avengers as of right now? Because for the most part, it just feels like they're not.
They're just like this nebulous thing that's just there.
Like maybe they'll assemble when there's an Earth level threat or a universe level threat, which would be when He Who Remains, aka Kang the Conqueror, comes back. Which now that I'm excited for, because I guess Ant-Man and the Wasp, that one, I am excited for that the most because I just want to see Jonathan Majors come back.
I'm really not excited for any of them, honestly, because. Again, I said I have just like burnout from these shows. It's just like I'm tired of them, and like they're like, man, not that original, and the writing is not that great. Moon Knight, what made Moon Knight work was the cast. Oscar Isaac was great as Moon Knight. The voice cast was great. The supporting characters were really good. The cast is what made that story because the writing was weak.
Oh, we gonna have to do a Moon Knight episode. I thought about doing it, but I got a lot of. God bless Oscar Isaac, because that man, he did the best he could with what he had. And I do truly believe that if it was not for the cast, I would have stopped watching. The premise is very interesting, but I don't know. It suffers from the pacing. The pacing
is not good. Like, the pacing is not good. And then like it's just a mess writing wise. The writing was not cohesive enough for me. The things that they should have expanded on, they didn't. Like they barely touched on his Jewish heritage. Like, and from what I understand about Moon Knight, that is his identity. Like his whole thing revolves around his Jewish identity, his Jewish heritage, the mythology of Judaism. Judaism actually has a lot of spirituality and mythology within the religion and the history itself. And they didn't even touch on that. Like if they didn't show the mother's the ceremony after the mother's death, we would have never known that he was even Jewish.
And I just question a lot of the direction and choices in that, because I don't know if that was because was there supposed to be a reveal with this? Was there supposed to, because there's no discussion of like, is he still is he even still practicing Judaism? And is it more so like, is it because of the life that he's led that he's just like, and because of the abuse he has?
God.
But I'm saying like, is it because of like, one, his abuse and trauma related to his family, 2, the life that he led as a mercenary, and then 3, the work that he does with Khonshu that leads him to just like question his faith altogether and abandon it, which like we wouldn't know that because nothing's ever brought up about it from him.
Reference, like you got this Jewish man traveling to the Middle East and he's meeting these gods from Egypt, and like no mention of the fact that Jews were enslaved in Egypt. How? Like you can even say, oh, like he was like, oh, my people came from, you know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, like the place of my people, where the Moses.
Right. It would have been nice to know if it's just like, is he not bringing up any of this because is he just not realizing like there's multi-theism? We don't know because that conversation doesn't happen and we have to guess.
Yeah, we'll do a recap, a special recap, because I just had the day and you think we should do a recap, and I want to get if you can get someone of the Jewish faith or Jewish identity to be a guest. Because I know some people who are Jewish who have a problem with that aspect themselves. They were also, where is this man?
And you know what's crazy is, to me, I'm saying this from like watching it as an audience member, not as someone who's in the Jewish faith. I'm just saying, like, for me, it would have just been helpful for y'all to put in there somewhere that he says like, I don't believe in God anymore, or like for him, just Yahweh, you know what I mean? Like, it would be something for him to just say like he stopped practicing because of everything that's happened to him. And then like, instead of I feel like I had to make that connection on my own. Because we don't know. I'm just like, that's where I'm more so confused. I'm like, only reason I'm just like, okay, I'm piecing it together based off of everything that happened to his life that we find out in episode 6, we find out in episode 5, the second to last episode, that this must be why. But we don't know. Nothing's concrete. So anyways, yeah, let's wrap up.
We're done. And so that everyone, that was just a mini recap of
Many things. I should know better than to bring up Marvel things because it's gonna be a doozy.
It's only natural. Like that's why we started this podcast anyway. We were like, you know what, we have a lot of thoughts about Avengers Endgame. Let's finally start a podcast. And that's also Here's What Happened came to me. Really, so here's what happened in Marvel's Avengers Endgame. But this is the end of this episode, our April/May recap for So Here's What Happened. Thank you so much for listening to us. As always, we have to thank our listeners and those who've been listening from the beginning, those who joined halfway through, and for those who are not finding So Here's What Happened, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. We do enjoy this discussion and you enjoy our recommendations. This is a monthly podcast that we do it at the end of every month, and we post it probably within the first 2 weeks of the following month. That's how it works. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarrieCNH12. That's at CarrieCNH12. I am a writer, journalist, and podcaster / YouTube channel YouTuber. You can find my writing, usually the most recent articles and the recent YouTube videos I've done, in my pinned tweets. And you can find all of my writing on authory.com. So just search my name, Carolyn Hines. I have a YouTube channel, again, under my name, Carolyn Hines, where I have videos for the roundtables for Africa Virtual Roundtables. That's the African American Film Critics Association, where we speak to Black film and television creators about their work and their latest projects. I am also the host of Beyond the Romance, which is an Asian drama podcast / YouTube channel. The podcast is on butwhythepodcast.com and on Acast, and you can also find the video version on my YouTube channel as well. I also have Carolyn Talks, where I speak to film creators about their work and in the industry. Oh, I also co-host Saturday Night Sci-Fi. That is a live tweet event every Saturday night, 10 Eastern. Just use the hashtag Saturday Night Sci-Fi. You can find what we're tweeting about, what we look for announcements for upcoming films and TV shows that we watch. It's across all around the world and multi-genres, but it has to have a sci-fi element to it. And as well, a hashtag Dramas with Carrie, where I live tweet the dramas that I'm currently watching. Not all of them, just some of them. But that's it. So Neysha, tell the people where they can find you and tell them what you have been.
Yes, y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Neysha Plays, NeyshaPlays, where y'all can find me doing more cosplays. I have 3 lined up that I'm excited to put out. As far as where else y'all can find me, I've been reviewing Comey Can't Communicate weekly on butwhythopodcast.com. And what else have I been up to? Honestly, I've just been trying to chill, read manga, and relax and watch anime until grad school starts back up this fall. But outside of that, y'all can find me on those places, and maybe I'll be writing on a new project soon that I am not saying anything else about. So that's it. Bye, y'all.
Yes, but and I have a special project coming up that I will mention at the end of June. It's something that will be happening in July, so I will mention that then. Until the next episode of So Here's What Happened, everyone stay safe. Bye.
Bye.